So, Father, you've returned to Saint Agnes. You've been here one full year.
Yes.
You've been able to see some of the blessings that you've been able to start, and now you can see them a ways down the road. What a gift it's been to have you back. But how has that first year been for you?
My rookie year, right? My rookie year, the second time around. It's been fantastic. When you're gone from somewhere for 12 years, as I was, you never know exactly what to expect. Certainly, I had been somewhat involved supporting the school through the red and white each year when asked, helping with school confessions. But by and large, I was pretty focused on my previous assignment at the cathedral, and all priests are. And so coming back was a wonderful experience for me, and it far exceeded my expectations.
Specific things that you noticed upon your return, things like you've talked with me about a number of different things
Sure.
that you've noticed, both in the students. You even noticed some things in the students when you were away and had taken a trip even to the East Coast. I remember you saying what you noticed about even the student body.
Absolutely. What became very clear to me upon my return, the word that stuck in my mind all year was joy. I saw a joy in the student body and the faculty and staff that was really telling. It says so much about the culture and the atmosphere that's here. I was chuckling to myself because I would be walking down the hallway, and how many students said, "Hello, Father. Hello, Father Ubel. Hello, Father Ubel." I felt walking down the hallway, I'm continually just saying, enough already. But that tells me that not only the respect for the priesthood, for the clergy, but the fact that the kids are engaged. They're engaging the adults in the building. I did not see the student who looks away. Obviously, it's a challenging time in our life, and people have many thoughts that go through their mind on a given day. But the joy that came across in the student body and the faculty is what stood out the most. I think additionally, my first school mass, the first all-school mass, was one of the most profound spiritual experiences that I can think of in a long, long time. The music from the choir was absolutely stunning. And then later that day, already a video was posted, and I saw it late in the afternoon, and I actually began to tear up because that's how meaningful that first all-school mass was. The introduction of the faculty making a profession of faith was something new to me, but it fit right into the liturgy. It made perfect sense. But just watching the students come forward for Holy Communion, and then later in the video seeing them walking into church, it just filled my heart with joy. And so right away from day one, that's what stood out. I remember when I spoke to the student body for the first time in a convocation in the Helene Houle Auditorium, I sort of stole a line from our Archbishop. When he was installed in his homily, he used the phrase, "I'm all in." And that really stood out because it was sending a message to the Archdiocese, I'm here and I mean it. And so I don't use those words lightly, but I chose to borrow that phrase from our Archbishop without asking him. And in turn, I said it because I meant it, and I also know that you have to put your money where your mouth is. Words can be cheap, but you have to follow through. And so the commitment that the students showed, the commitments that the faculty and staff demonstrated right away made it easy to say that.
You've shown through so many different interactions your priorities with respect to being a pastor and a superintendent in a school. What do you see as your top 2 or 3 priorities? I can tell you what I see. One of them is just your engagement with students, your love for being out at games and meets and matches and out on sports fields. You have a deep love for athletics. And so tell me a little about your priorities, what you see as your priorities being the pastor and superintendent of a school.
Well, first of all, on the athletic front, I'm doing this because I'm living vicariously through the students because I was a lousy athlete. So if I can go to a game and see us win, to me, it's like it's gravy. But I think it's a delicate balance as pastor and superintendent. It's a dual title. It's a dual role. And it's not always easy to know where one starts and one begins. In an ideal world, we see the synergy between the parish and the school as being critically important. We are still a parish-sponsored pre-K to 12 school, the only one in the Archdiocese. And that's both a blessing and also it's a challenge at the same time. Because first and foremost, I am a pastor, and I see my role first and foremost as pastoral and spiritual and not as administrative. That being said, I do love being involved in the details and seeing all the plans. But when you have a great team, and Kevin, I have to say, you put together such a wonderful team, some new faces to me, also some who were here before. It's just been organically developing. That makes it very easy to let go of the minutia that sometimes I can have a tendency to get involved with that I don't need to. And so being the pastor is a great blessing. And Sunday still is the most important day of the week. It always will be. That's my primary focus. But I love Monday through Friday. And that's where the rubber really hits the road in terms of our school. So I think to answer your question, how I balance those two is something that is still developing over time because it's easy. One could be involved in this school full time easily. And so I know that I can't do that and I shouldn't do that because then what will suffer will be the pastoral care of the people in the parish. And we have, whether it's families who do not use the school, older couples whose kids have graduated, I need to be attentive to the entire parish. And that means being involved in parish activities. We are a parish with the school. And so I always try to remind myself of that.
So are there any other things that you can think of that you've seen and observed your first year? You've been really, really good at kind of not making judgments much about what's happened this first year. You've really wanted to watch and see how things have gone.
Exactly.
Are there other things that you've observed that you want to share about?
Well, I'll tell you one thing right away. Every once in a while after school, I would go into the commons area and just go up to tables and visit with students. But I had ulterior motives, Kevin. I wanted to peek and see what they were doing in their homework.
Interesting.
And I saw books that blew me away. I mean, really. It was incredibly impressive. So what I would say is that a trajectory was begun towards the classical model of education, towards a new school culture. And what I saw after 12 years is how much that has progressed. I also noticed right away the improvements that Father Moriarty implemented on the entire campus. It was very obvious to me. And I said this to him when we had a wonderful meeting, sort of the handoff, if you will, that what he was handing off to me was significantly stronger than what I handed off to him. And there was no disparaging remarks towards anything previously. It's just when you go in a certain direction, it continues organically to grow and develop. And that's what I saw in terms of the curriculum, in terms of the student culture, in terms of the family involvement and buy-in. There is family buy-in to the mission of St. Agnes. That also stood out right away.
Yeah, wonderful.
So, Kevin, I'd like to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind. I noticed that we are both wearing St. Agnes pins.
Yep.
We didn't talk about this ahead of time, but you are wearing a 10-year pin. I'm wearing a 5-year pin. And I think it's a wonderful tradition to be able to share with faculty and staff their years of service. But now that you've completed a decade, I'd be really curious, as you look back 10 years ago and compare it to now, what are some things that you have noticed in that decade of service?
Yeah, first, I think I have to give a great deal of gratitude to those folks who had done all the work with your leadership and with Father Moriarty's leadership his first couple of years here too, to get the school to a place where it was. When I arrived, man, there was still a sense of, okay, we got to make sure we can keep the doors open. Right. We've got to make sure that that we're covering whatever deficit we have on our budget, and I quickly figured out that we don't have to live in that world anymore.
Right.
This school is going well. There were 600 plus students. We were doing well, and I thought, we've got to stop living in crisis mode.
Right.
Because there's a way in which, when there is a crisis, you can kind of just expect another crisis coming right around the corner. And there was no crisis. And I had to really work with folks to say, you know what, we're done with that. We are moving into a normal school mode.
Did you need to get them to relax a bit, do you think?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think of the team that you assembled, the team of really four great administrative folks who did so much work to get the school to where it was. I remember talking with Patrick Menke back in the day, and when he first came, and he showed me kind of what he inherited, and I thought, oh my gosh, Patrick, how are you going to make sense of all this? The truth is, you all made sense of all of it, and created a school that was already on a terrific trajectory. Kids were well disciplined. The faculty was bought in. There was already the type of movement in the right direction that I was just proud of what you all had achieved prior to me even arriving here.
But you needed to bring it to the next level.
Yeah. So one of the things that I saw when I first got here was, I thought, you know what? These kids don't show up at games, meets, matches. They don't have what I would consider to be the youthful exuberance that I wanted to see, that joy that you made a comment about. And that's not through any fault of anybody who was any of my predecessors. It was completely they needed to do what they needed to do to get the place into the right mode. And all I could think of was, man, we're training these kids. They've internalized a lot of good things, including faith and reason and virtue. And so our job now is to just turn them loose and let that youthful exuberance happen more so. And there was already the right trajectory in overall academic formation, and so. But when I started teaching, I saw very quickly, okay, these students are really well formed faith-wise, and it's interesting because it's almost as if it was taken for granted by them, and I wanted them to make it their own. Sure. So there's a way in which during high school years, kids have to make faith their own. And so by teaching juniors each year, I've been able to see the development of our students. But they embraced me very, very well from the very beginning. And they started to see the cultural shift among their fellow students. They started to feel like, okay, this is my school. I said, hey, look, this is your school. You ought to feel like it's a second home for you. And so we were able to create an environment. And part of that was just allowing the faculty to realize, look, these are good kids. Let's let them be as good and as joyful as we can.
Exactly.
And so that's what I noticed, just needing the attention from the very beginning. So I feel like in some ways I focus more on student and faculty culture than on anything else. But we also put together that philosophy of education that had been fairly well done prior to my arrival, but we got it across the finish line with the Archbishop's signature on it, and that was a gift to our community as well. And there are numbers of people who comment to me, that philosophy of education that you have is so great.
It's excellent.
And it's funny because when Father Moriarty first gave it to me, he said, Kevin, I'd like you to read this and give me a comment. And my first comment was, I said, well, it's a wonderful document, and it looks like it's been written by doctoral people for the sake of some master's students. I said, so let's make it a little more user friendly, and so that's what we did. We made it a little more user friendly, and what we have is the result of all of that. So
I remember years ago, I remember looking at the school building and hearing some comments that people would make. It has so much to do with the mindset that we have. And they talked about our old building or the windows and things of this nature that we were working on. And part of my goal was to get them to switch their mindset, right? So just as you're saying, you want the students to be able to see the school as their own. So instead of seeing it as an old building, you see it as a classic building with hardwood floors that were polished and look ready to go, just as they are again this summer. And so sometimes I think we have to really challenge people to get out of their old mindset and to realize that they can do things. When I was with a group of students at a pro-life gathering in Washington, D.C., what I noticed was the leadership. We were with, I think, 4 or 5 busloads of young people, and St. Agnes made up about a bus busload and a half of that group. So they were a largest group, but still a minority of all the students together. But the leadership that they demonstrated really stood out to me. Not only just the joy, but standing up, not dominating, but sharing their faith, sharing their experiences with the whole group with a confidence that also stood out to me, that had increased since I remember it before. And that happens again through a strong culture where this is your school. And the pride that they showed in being Aggies, again, really stood out.
Yeah.
So Kevin, I'd like to ask you just on a more personal note, if you don't mind. You took a huge risk in coming to Saint Agnes School. And I say that because you had a very solid position in another fine Catholic high school. You live significant distance from the core of St. Paul. What was it like for your family when you made the decision to come to St. Agnes? And how have you seen it affect them?
Yeah. It's amazing how important my vocation, and it is a vocation to Catholic education,
Absolutely.
is to me and to my family. And I remember telling my children when I was leaving and coming to St. Agnes, I remember telling them after school I wanted them to hear it from me before they heard it from anybody else,
Yes.
and it got announced and so on. I remember them saying, "Well, does that mean that we're leaving with you?" I said, "Not yet." That's what I said to them that day. I said, "You're going to stay for a year, maybe two, but I didn't want to subject the commute to them for that
Yes.
period of time." And one of the great things that I realized over the course of a couple years was, I'm all in here myself. My family needs to be all in, to use yours and
Sure.
the Archbishop's phrase. They need to be all in too. And the fact that Father Moriarty and Patrick Menke and an alumna of the school made it possible for us to stay during the week here. We were able to, after 2 years, move our whole family here and live in Frogtown across the parking lot
You're my
from
neighbor.
the school. Exactly. I still have only the third shortest commute.
Yes, that's
you
right.
beat me, and so do the sisters. But when we moved the kids over here, it was a huge gift for us all to be together. And we would live at home during breaks and weekends, and we'd be here during the week and during the school year. And it was quite a leap of faith for my wife too, because she had to manage two households. I have nothing but a deep affection for my wife's willingness to manage these two places. But our family has really kind of thrown themselves into this place. And I've said for the past several years that in the education of my children, St. Agnes gives far more to me than I will ever give to it. And there's something about what I see as I want my kids to be Catholic their whole lives. That is the most important thing. I want them to get to heaven. I want them to be good Catholics. And with the help of Saint Agnes School, they are really good Catholics. I had two of my kids, my junior and one of my graduates, this morning get up on their own and go to Mass, to a daily Mass together. I don't know that that's possible anywhere other than Saint Agnes School.
It's hard to put a price tag on that.
That's right. I remember the first month that we were here, my oldest daughter, Julia, had made a friend here, and they were up in her room in our apartment across the road. And they were praying a rosary together. I didn't suggest for them to go pray a rosary together, and I don't care if it was my daughter who led that or her friend. It doesn't matter to me. And all I could think of was, I can't buy that anywhere. I can't buy that for my children. And so when I look at the education of my children and what they've gotten here, and then I've actually asked them once or twice, I've said, okay, any desire to go to a different school? They said, we'd never leave St. Agnes. And my oldest 4 are jealous of my youngest daughter, who will be the only 13-year
The only 13-year Aggie.
of all of my children. She'll be the only 13-year.
And she'll be able to hold it over
Yes,
them
she will,
forever.
for her whole life.
The other night recently we had the freshman picnic, and it was a wonderful event, chance to meet new and returning students. I came upon 2 boys who were visiting with each other, and they looked like long-lost friends, and they share with me that, oh, yes, we know each other. I said, well, where'd you know each other from? Well, captain's practices. In other words, you just met last week. But the way in which they were conversing with one another, you would think that they'd known each other for several years. That's the kind of atmosphere that it's hard, again, to nail down, to put a price tag on, but they connected right away. And I suspect that those two will be friends all the way through high school. And again, if I'm a parent, I want my children to meet other kids who are of a similar mindset, who have the same basic attitudes, vision, and desire for their children to be saints. And I see that happening. And yet they maintain a sense of normalcy and joy. And we want them to be teenagers in the high school. And in the grade school, we want them to be kids. We're not trying to create little adults, but rather saints at their own stage in life. So I'd also like to ask you about some of the improvements over the course of the summer. It's been a busy place. I know people spread out, they go on their vacations, but a lot's been happening here over the course of the summer, improvements. Can you just share a little bit about some of those?
Yeah, one of the things that we as a leadership team, including you, Father, have wanted to do is to make sure that our campus looks as beautiful as what's happening on the inside with the formation of kids' souls. And the way I look at that is we have to be good stewards of this beautiful classic and newer buildings for the sake of, and grounds for the sake of having an environment for our kids. I remember when I first arrived at St. Agnes, there were a few tiles up on third and a half floor that were broken, and I told our maintenance folks, I said, we've got to fix these, if only for the reason that we show everybody that we care about this building,
Exactly.
the beauty of this place. You know, I said, let's not be store blind and.
But they've always been that way.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we fixed those, and it was and the other thing I noticed back then was, gosh, there's just not enough light. So we did 1.5 the amount of lights in the hallways and in classrooms.
Oh, really?
Because I just thought, gosh, I can't see. I was teaching in a classroom with 4 fluorescent light fixtures in it, and the classroom was fairly large. And I thought, gosh, we need double that in this space. So I said, we're going to do.
Okay.
But the problem is that once you get more lights on, you have to actually paint the walls because you see all the dirt on the walls. But in any case, we believe very much that the physical environment really matters. We want kids to feel like they should be wearing nicer clothes, that they ought to look nice, they ought to straighten up when they walk into a place. And so a few of the changes that we started this summer, we wanted to continue to put new doors and door frames for the sake of safety and security, but also for fire safety. So we've been replacing 10 doors on first floor to make sure that we can lock and do lockdowns better, you know, in all of our different.
And they're classic wood doors.
They're gorgeous doors.
Right. But we have to be aware of the realities of modern culture and safety and security, fire codes, things of that nature.
And so we're working on replacing all the classroom doors over the course of several years here. But we started on first floor, really wanted to make sure that you know, the likely entrance of anybody is through a first floor door. So we thought, you know, we've really got to start here.
There.
In addition, we wanted to improve our security by adding an Ever Alert system, which is it's a system that involves several screens in each classroom, so that when we go to lockdown, or if there's something security-wise that we have to keep kids in classrooms for, we can flash something across screens, and they serve as clocks, but they also serve as alerts for, and even for fire drills. So we've got wonderful new things. Our IT department has been working hard under the direction of Deacon Chris Vance, and that's been a gift to see. And you know, the great thing about that is we always are looking for security enhancements in our school, wanting to make sure that our kids are safe. And because I'll tell you, when you send your kids to a school, we hope that safety is one of those things that we can just take for granted. Well, in this day and age, we can't take it for granted as much as we wish we could. And therefore, we have to put common sense things in place. And we've spent some money on that.
And it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in the city, the suburbs, the same issues could happen anywhere.
Exactly. exactly.
I also noticed there's some improvements on the outside of the building as well. In the interest of full disclosure, when I was here before, we removed some bushes in front of the rectory. And it always sort of stuck in my craw about the large hedges and the chain link fence. I've been getting a little bit into the weeds with going through old yearbooks to see exactly when that fence was put up. And to the best of my knowledge, it was the 1955-56 school year. And so that was removed. Tell me what you think that's going to look like.
Yeah, this is one of those projects that Father Moriarty and I talked at length about
Okay.
over several years before he left. And I
Sure.
said, Father, I'd really like to dedicate some money to that at some point. And so I've always wanted to take that hedge out and have it look more like the way the church and the rectory look.
Right.
I think having the hedge there protects our building from unwanted guests.
Right, exactly.
But what needs to happen is, I think we just have to look more welcoming, and so this is one of those ways I think we can look more welcoming. We can have some grass. We actually have been working on putting some irrigation in so that we can have grass
Keep
on the
it
north
green,
side of the
yes.
building and keep it green and not have all kinds of weeds overtake it. So we took that fence out, took all the bushes out with the help of the men's club, which was a huge gift to us.
Yes.
It saved us well over $6,000 to have the men's club.
Shout out to the men's club.
Exactly. So and then to put the fence back a little bit so we have access to even sitting on that green for classes. Sometimes in the nicer times of the year, kids want to go outside. In fact, my students in my own class say, Dr. Ferdinandt, can we go outside for a class today? And
I remember the first time somebody asked me, Father, is it all right to use your backyard? And my answer was absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually love it when that happens. It's not that much during the school year. You've got September, and then maybe again in May, and then the rest of the time we're pretty much inside. But when we have the nice weather, it's great to offer that as an option occasionally. And so we want to have a welcoming environment all the way around.
Yeah, so that's one of the outside pieces. The other thing that you and I talked about at length was the need for the parking lot. I don't know how many of our folks have noticed the trees and shrubs and unwanted weeds that grow up on the other side of the
I
alley
hope they
side of
noticed
the-
it. I certainly did.
Yeah, but we wanted to make sure that we repaired that wall was in need of repair, was in
Yes.
need of a new landscaping, and so we've been working on making sure we care well for our parking lot. We're putting a new fence on those two sides of the parking lot, and I think that's going to serve us well on into the future. So
It's going to look really sharp, too. But again, you talk about safety for the students as well. As the retaining wall was beginning to crumble and the roots taking over, it not only didn't look very welcoming, but it probably would become a safety issue at some point. So it's good to get ahead of that now. That's a big project. It's
It is.
bigger than I thought.
Yeah. So those are a couple of exterior things that we've done. We're also having this during the month of August, we're having a cleanup day to help us trim hedges but all of that stuff takes time, and it takes effort and money and
I hope we can do some of these things even more often. So depending on when people are able to access our interview here, August 16th at 9 o'clock, we're inviting school families to come with garden gloves and hose and any kind of implements to help weed to get ready for opening day.
Yeah.
So I think of it like opening day in baseball. We want to look great for opening day. So if they're available, I'll provide donuts. Just bring the family. We'd love to see you.
Yeah. And we repaired the ramp for the entrance to the church office too this
Absolutely.
summer right at the beginning, and so we're working to make sure that we are safe, secure, and all those different things have been a part of that. And then there's the beauty part, which is Spirit Store. We've got a new Spirit Store coming into our commons area. We had to move the trophy case to the other side. We're hoping to add another one eventually so that it balances the other one out. But we're looking forward to having a Spirit Store in there, and so people will be able to buy spirit wear and even see some of the newer spirit wear.
That's
as well.
fantastic. I think the kids will love it. And I can't wait for homecoming. It'll be a perfect time for it to be filled with new merchandise, merch, as the kids say. So,
Father, one area that inside the building that we have worked to improve this summer has been Gruen Gymnasium. We have worked to replace the scoreboards with the generosity of alums and donors at the Aggie Open, and that has precipitated the painting of the walls and the painting of the ceiling and the replacement of 2 of the backboards that are in there. And we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish there. It is not the end of what we need to do in Gruden Gym. Oh, by the way, there's also padding, new padding with the new logo on it that's going to go on the end of Gruden Gym. So anyway, we're happy to refresh that space. It's a space that we use so often, both during the school day and after school and on weekends. And so we're happy to offer a refresh on that space.
I've heard a few construction noises from my office that emanates from one of the kindergarten rooms. Perhaps you can share a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah. One of the things that about 4 years ago in my office, I was sitting with Michael Adkins, who was then the director of the lower school, and Carl Hendrickson, who's the assistant headmaster and therefore quasi-director of the upper school. And one of the things that I said is, I want you guys to write down what if money weren't an object, what would you do? What one thing would you want? And I'll write down mine.
Oh, great
and so
question.
we all wrote down on a separate sheet of paper. And I looked up, I said, all right, Michael, what's yours? He said, something to help kids who struggle. Carl was next. He said, I want to help our struggling kids. And mine was the exact same.
Really?
All 3 of us together.
And it wasn't a setup.
No setup. It was no setup. I just wanted to hear from them what should be our next set of priorities. And so it's funny because as a part of a 3-year vision cycle that we're working on right now, one of the important points has been a student resource, either a student resource center or additional help to help our struggling students, our students who ought to be here but can't do it without some additional services. And we believe very deeply that we ought to serve whole families wherever we can. And so if there are 1 or 2 or 4 kids that struggle in a family, we want to be able to do our darndest to help them. So one of the things that we, as part of our vision, have been about is to add some space for a resource person to help especially our K and 1 kids, but K through 6. And we've always done fairly well with some of our 7-12 work, but we haven't been identifying as well those kids in kindergarten and first grade and helping them before it becomes more difficult.
Exactly.
So we actually put a wall up, the kindergarten room that, the larger of the 2 kindergarten rooms on the left side as you walk toward the business office, has 2 doors accessing
That's a huge room. It's
It
probably
is.
2 originally.
It is, yeah. So what we did was we put a wall up in there and we hired a person to do some part-time work with our K-6 kids as a student resource person. And my hope is that our kids who struggle are going to be able to be served well. And this is just the tip of the iceberg for us. That's just where we're starting. Our families have said to us for years, gosh, we need some help with our kids who need a little bit of additional resources. Please help us, and we've heard them. We've heard them and heard them loud and clear, and we really do want to do right.
We want to
for
be
those kids.
responsive to the needs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's been the student resource room has been, and it's one of those that I have all kinds of donors who want to help with, but we haven't rolled out a fully baked program preschool through 12th grade, partially because we want to get some resources, some help. Let's do some vision work on what's going to be best for our student body in this school.
And speaking of vision, how do you think that fits in with the larger overall vision for the next few years?
Yeah, one of the things that we are working toward is helping parents, helping be the partners that parents need in the education of their children. So in our vision, we've talked about the needs of our teachers, who are the most important employees of our school, because that's where all of the things that we need to have happens in classrooms.
That's where the rubber hits the road.
Exactly. So, and that's our core business. So we really do have our faculty to thank for so much of what's been achieved, but our faculty need the resources too to help all of our kids. So we want to be really good partners with our parents. We want to serve the students as the primary group of people that we're working with, but we want to make sure that all of our constituencies are well served in all of this.
Right.
And yeah, Father, one of the things that has been really important to you has been the ongoing service to our parishioners for our school.
Yes.
And therefore the relationship between the school and the parish has been a really important priority for you since you've been here. And I know in our vision we have a few sentences dedicated to improving the relationships between the parish and the school. Not that they're bad, but that
exactly.
we can always do better at integrating a school that has a budget of almost $9 million and a parish that has a budget of $1.3 million. And our the biggest mission of the parish is the school, and the school actually has more of a budget than the parish does on this front.
Right.
But talk with us about your desire even for the integration between the parish and the school.
Well, it's a great question, because actually, without going back too far into the past, certainly when I arrived in 2006, I saw a real disconnect between the two. It was almost as though there was a brick wall in a parking lot between the parish and the school. We had parishioners who literally had never set foot in a school building. I knew right away that something has to change. I've seen a tremendous change in those first 6 years, and Father Moriarty only increased that cooperation between the two. But it is critically important, because we are a parish with a school. We've made a lot of efforts to educate people about that, even though St. Agnes has always, ever since the high school division started, became a welcoming high school for regional grade schools. We had feeder schools. A lot of those feeder schools closed. And so as demographics changed, as times changed, the parish had to change as well. The parish had to pivot. We no longer had some of the same feeder schools. And as the program has increased and developed, we've drawn kids from, I think, something like 60 parishes, which is amazing. I don't know another school that could say they draw from 60 parishes, even our independent schools. I would be willing to bet you on that. So that says a lot about the draw that people see. Nonetheless, we still remain a parish-sponsored school. And so I've tried to make efforts to increase, for example, even the student discount for active parishioners, those who are here on Sundays. Everyone is scrappy. They're raising large families, whether they're from this parish or another one. They're trying to make ends meet. We want to help them to do that as much as possible. So creating an atmosphere in which the parish sees the ministry of the school as important is critically important to me. And I'm happy to say that we have retired couples whose kids have long since graduated who still continue to support the school through the Red Envelope program. Once a month, we take up a collection for the school, or through their presence at the Red and White or the Aggie Open, whatever it might be. They are remaining loyal to the school. So I think it's very important. Additionally, I would say it's not just the relationship between the parish and the school, but also between the parish and the archdiocese. We are a parish within the archdiocese with a long history, a wonderful history. We were and still are technically considered an ethnic parish without boundaries because of the Austrian heritage. So a parish that was set up for German speakers. So though I am for sure the first pastor who was not German speaking, and I'm sorry because I know you are, that string broke when I came in 2006. We still have that heritage that we protect and we promote, but we are part of a larger church. We're not an island unto ourselves. And so every parish in the Archdiocese now is going to take part in a large campaign that will benefit initiatives that the Archdiocese has discerned with the help of the people are important. One of which, I might add, is helping people afford Catholic grade schools. It's probably the single largest bucket of the entire Archdiocesan campaign is going to go towards Catholic schools and Catholic education. So I'm very happy about that. We were selected to be a pilot parish, which I was surprised with because I just got back. And so we went first. And basically from December through June 30th, we were engaging on a capital campaign. The parish keeps 60% of the funds, and the diocese receives 40% for those initiatives that are clearly outlined of Archbishop Hebda. The people responded very, very well. I had probably myself over 50 individual meetings with individuals and couples, so it took a lot of Saturday mornings or evenings. But it was a great opportunity not only to connect with parishioners, but also to tell them why I think it's important to support that initiative. We are now engaged in our very first project because, again, this is a campaign over the course of 5 years. So that means that the funds come in over the course of 5 years when people make pledges. But we began by sprucing up the sanctuary floor and restoring our beautiful communion rail, which is a real gift and treasure, but it had been breaking apart physically. And so that project is ongoing, is almost done. I think we're probably within a week or so. And by the time that school starts, I guarantee it will be complete. And I think people are going to love to see the difference. One priest told me that the sanctuary floor is shinier and brighter than the day that it was put in, about 25 years ago. So that says a lot. So I'm grateful to the parishioners. They stepped up. They made sacrificial gifts, these parishioners, and I'm very grateful for that. And so I'm happy that the very first project we did was in the parish church because that's where it all happens. Right? Additionally, we will be looking at the lower level, Schuler Hall, the lower chapel, the allied meeting rooms. Those get tremendous use. You asked earlier about the differences I noticed. One of them is the use of the lower level. Basically, I think when I got here before, it was used pretty much for donuts on Sunday and a few parish meetings. It's used a lot more, including the school. It could be a beautiful space. It just looks a little tired right now. So we will be engaged in discussions to see how the rooms could be used more effectively, more efficiently, and how we can spruce them up.
Father, when you mentioned the relationship between the parish and the school and the families, I've noticed that so many more families now from the school are parishioners, and
absolutely,
that's a testament both to the school and to the parish, because when I see the families, one of the things that I didn't get the chance to comment on that I think is really important is how important are kids being around other families that believe what we believe is.
Absolutely.
I will say that I don't mind driving. My wife doesn't mind driving kids to be with other kids that we want them to be around.
Yes, right.
And
exactly.
And there's a way in which that synergy in the school has led to so many of our families wanting to be with each other on weekends too. So at the parish, becoming parishioners.
And we also have, clearly, we have families from the parish who are also in the school, and they're not just parish families, but they're 9 o'clock families, or they're 10:30 families, or they're 8 o'clock families. They are actually spread 5:15 families. And so people are creatures of habit, right? And so people love to come to Mass at Saint Agnes, but they typically come more or less to the same Mass each weekend. And we have some from every single Mass who are represented in our school. It's also the case on the parish side that we have homeschool families who are most welcome. They contribute tremendously to the parish as well, and families who have other options for their children for school. But by and large, it's a significant difference from my previous time here in that the vast majority of our parish families I also see here in the school, and that's really encouraging to me.
Well, Father, I want to thank you for your leadership in the school and in the parish. It's been a gift to have you back. You've been so respectful of what we've accomplished, but also have brought such a beautiful spirit and sense of detail to what we're doing around here. It's been great to have you back, and really grateful also to our families. Our families are amazing.
They absolutely are
in so many different ways, and I can't say thank you enough for their trusting their children to us. as partners with them. They're the primary educators. It's our job to figure out how best to make sure that these kids become Catholics and stay Catholics the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. And I want to add to your comments my admiration as well. Coming back to a much stronger St. Agnes, yet continuing the same character of the place, of the school, of the parish, it still feels very real to me. It still feels new in many respects, and yet much of what I loved of the old is still here. Mm-hmm. So we're continuing to move forward, but also with an eye to our heritage and our past. You've done an outstanding job, and it's been really fun to work with you.
Thank you.
Thanks.